Hey lady, welcome to the Postpartum on Purpose podcast. If we haven't met, my name is Anne-Marie. I'm wife to James and mom to 5 beautiful kids ages 9 and under with 1 miscarried baby. Here we see postpartum all the way from birth to the first year of life as a time of grit, growth, and grace. This is episode 79. Hi lady, I hope you're so well. The audio on this might sound a little funny because, well, 2 things. 1, I'm not under the weather, but like considering being under the weather. And my voice reflects that. And also it is late as I'm recording this. And my husband is in our room where I usually record the podcast. And this is just coming to you via voice recorder on my phone. Let's get started with free things. That's what I want to do first. Let's get started with free things. If you've been around a minute, you know that free things is mental shorthand for just some of the many things that we have to be grateful for, because we always have something. There's always something to be grateful for. And then also just a gentle reminder to myself as much as to you that no matter what the size of our budget or how many family members we have welcomed, we can still live a rich, beautiful, meaningful life. Free things this week. My mother-in-law sent us a little care package for Valentine's Day. At time of recording, Valentine's Day is 3 days away. We're getting close. And it was just very thoughtful of her. As driving distance goes, they are about 22 hours away. And as you can imagine, we see them not very often, but it was really kind of her to bridge that distance by sending something thoughtful for the kids to enjoy. And then one small change this week is actually kind of a big change. And that big change is that my period came back. I am 8 months postpartum to the day today, and my period returned just a few days ago. Now, I will have a separate episode on my experience with a Mira monitor. If you are familiar with the Marquette method of NFP or fertility awareness, you know that it uses the clear blue fertility monitor, but they are also in process developing soft protocols, still doing research for use of the Mira monitor. And the main distinction between the two is that clear blue gives you qualitative readings, so high, low, peak fertility. And then Mira gives you actual quantitative numbers to look at. And then there's a protocol depending on values that would indicate to you, okay, potentially fertile versus very unlikely to be fertile. It's been a wild time. It was a wild first ovulation because, of course, your first period always comes after your first ovulation. You can't have a period before your first ovulation. That 10-day period was wild. Like I said, that'll be its own separate episode, but I have made it to my first period after the first ovulation postpartum. And I don't know if this is just in my head, but there are a couple of things that already seem like they have shifted just in that time. And yeah, more to unpack on that later. But it is interesting just to start thinking about, like, okay, to me, this is a significant moment in postpartum after your cycle returns, because yeah, just sort of an indicator of focus starting to shift and open up and outward a little bit more, I think. And yeah, more on that in a separate episode. There were 2 brief things I wanted to address today. And they are to do with the 500 calorie per day recommendation for breastfeeding mothers. There was a post I saw on Instagram sometime in the last couple of months, and it led me to write an article for Natural Womanhood, which hasn't come out yet. I've done the research, I've written the article, I submitted it, but it hasn't been published yet. And when it is, I'll update the show notes with the link. But the idea was that 500 calories per day was just a simple math calculation, not coming from much research on women, but a simple math calculation to cover the basic needs a woman would have for breast milk production during postpartum, and also account for the fact that she would want to lose weight. And that was it. But this post that I was reading said, okay, but what about her nutritional needs to address things like healing from that dinner plate sized wound where her placenta detached, whether or not she had a vaginal or a cesarean birth, right? No matter what, her placenta was removed. And that is a significant wound that she has. If she had a C-section, she has had a major abdominal surgery. And we know that, and I only learned this from the post, but we know that wound healing from a major surgery leads to about 20% higher nutritional needs. Not forever, but for a time. while we're still healing in that early stages. She is also healing from the nutritional depletion of 9 months of pregnancy and the nutritional depletion of labor, whether it was an hour or she had a C-section or she had hours and hours and days of labor. Whatever that situation looked like, that was a stress to her body, nutritionally speaking. The post was asking this question of whether 500 calories was a wild underestimate, a gross underestimate of what a woman's actual nutritional needs would be early on in postpartum. And they did not, to be clear, they did not specify exactly how long the significantly increased nutritional needs would extend, potentially. And I would just say that was a limitation of the post. But I think it's a question worth asking. I absolutely think it's a question worth asking. And I'm just going to say, for purposes of discussion right here, let's say in the first 6 weeks postpartum, say, or the first 12 weeks postpartum, because I would argue too that somewhere between 6 and 12 weeks, most women are becoming more active, right? And so during that time, and in particular, if you are exclusively breastfeeding or even partially breastfeeding or partially pumping, you would have increased needs then too, as you are becoming more active. If you're not moving around as much as home, you're moving, but not as much as you would have been pre-pregnancy or during your pregnancy. Hopefully you were continuing to move into exercise. There's going to be an uptick in your nutritional needs during that time as well. I just thought that was a really important question to ask. Is 500 calories far too few for what a woman would actually need? And in the post, they talked about giving rough estimates for different needs. So the depletion from pregnancy, wound healing from placental detachment, but then also potentially from a C-section. And the estimate that they gave is that a woman might actually need more like 1,100 to 1,600. So between 2 and 3 times more than that 500 calorie recommendation per day, that they might need that. Again, like I said, didn't specify for exactly how long, but let's say at least the first weeks, all right, maybe 6 weeks, maybe 12 weeks, that they would need at least that amount for all of the things that the body is trying to compensate for, to recover from, to heal from, and to move forward. And the post also made this assertion, and then they gave some research behind it as well, but they made this assertion that when we don't nourish the mother properly, that may be some of why we are seeing the things that you and I, probably myself too, right, historically, would consider just, oh, that's just postpartum. The idea is that if we nourish women well and adequately for what their actual needs are, maybe we don't see the same level of brain fog, fatigue, difficulty navigating sleep deprivation, because the sleep deprivation is not necessarily going to go away even if we are well fed. But if we could be better able to cope with it, right? That's the idea potentially. And hair loss. And I just thought, it's interesting. Of course, anecdotal evidence here, right? Sample size of 1, just me. But this postpartum, I have been the most relaxed about even thinking about weight loss, and the most attentive to eating when I'm hungry and eating lots of healthy fats, lots of nuts, lots of seeds. I calculated this morning, just roughly calculated. I was looking at the fat content in this granola that I make based on all the things that are going into it: sunflower seeds, pepita, sliced almonds, oatmeal, what else is in there? Honey, olive oil, pecans, walnuts, chia seeds, ground flaxseed. Jiminy Christmas, this is high fat content. And I'm not opposed to it. I'm not opposed to it because those are good and healthy fats that we want. But just thinking about this postpartum, I have been the most intentional about eating those healthy fats. And this has been the lowest and shortest period of hair loss that I have had from all 5 pregnancies. And I would have expected the opposite, that the more pregnancies I would have had, the more depleted I would have come. Again, take that for what you will, anecdotal evidence. But it gave me pause, is what I'll say. It gave me pause. And then the second thing I just wanted to address is that as I was researching and reading for this article about whether 500 calories is just far too few for what women need during postpartum, particularly early on, I read two different journal articles. Neither of them are new. They're both, well, one of them was new. One of them is from 2025. The other was, oldish, 1998. But they both talked about studying women who were losing weight postpartum, and not like your average woman, right? Not like professional athletes, but average healthy women. And the expected weight loss per month was just a lot less than in my head would be expected. And from the one article, the 1998 one, I'll just read briefly. Postpartum loss of body weight is usually highest in the first 3 months and generally greater among women who practice exclusive breastfeeding. But the extent to which the energy mobilized supports lactation depends on gestational weight gain and the nutritional status of the mother. And then the article reviewed 17 different studies and found that well-nourished women lost 0.8 kilograms per month. When I put that in the old Google, that's only 1.76 pounds. And you and I both know that when we come home from the hospital or have just given birth, wherever we gave birth, there's an initial significant weight loss because all of the baby's weight, of course, we're losing. And then generally we start to mobilize some fluid as well in those first couple of days and lose some of that. But beyond that, 1.76 pounds per month is not what I expected. It's definitely less. And then in a 2025 research article on optimal nutrition during lactation, there was a similarly modest expected weight loss of about 1.41 pounds per month. Now, you might be saying, Anne-Marie, Chimney Christmas, I lost way more weight than that way sooner on, or I was back to my pre-pregnancy weight, several months postpartum. I'm not back to my pre-pregnancy weight, and I am, as I said, 8 months postpartum. The point is not to judge. The point is not to compare, but it's simply to say, to acknowledge that my expectations of what reasonable postpartum weight loss would look like did not match these two articles that I read in terms of reasonable expected weight loss. And I just wanted to offer that in case it's helpful to you as well, in case it's helpful. I'm not going to get into here some suggestions on, well, what are some of the other foods besides what I just shared about my high healthy fat granola. But that's not the point of this episode here, to get into, okay, well, what can you be eating and all of that. I just wanted to put these two ideas out there. The first idea being that 500 calories per day may be nowhere near enough for what postpartum moms need, especially early on. And that it's possible that our expectations about reasonable weight loss may need to be adjusted. I hope that's helpful to you, lady. I'll talk to you later.